What's up, guys? JP back at you once again, bringing you guys day number 14 in my 10th annual 31 Days of Horror, a series in which we watch and review 31 horror films in 31 days, all during the month of October, leading right up to Halloween, of course. And continuing along with the Kino titles, we have a sequel to the film I reviewed a couple days ago when we kicked off the Kino titles. And the film I'm talking about is Trilogy of Terror 2 from the year 1996. Now, Trilogy of Terror 2 I have a pretty long history with. I had first heard about it from a friend who called it Trilogy of Terror. He didn't know it was Trilogy of Terror 2. And he described to me each segments. You know, he was like, knew that I liked horror. He's like, have you ever seen this movie called Trilogy of Terror? And I was like, no. And we were kids, and he described each segment to me, and it sounded really creepy, and I wanted to check it out. Years later, I ended up catching it on TV, whether it was like Chiller or Sci-Fi or AMC, Fear Fest, one of those things. And I checked it out, and it was really good. And then years later after that, when we were doing the... I think before that, I downloaded it like online because... or like off of YouTube or something, because for a long time this film did not have a release. It was on VHS. And I watched it then, and then when we did 1996, the show for 1996, Top 10 of 1996 on 22 Shots, I rewatched it there, and it actually would have made my top 10. It was right at the number 11 spot, I believe. It was like 11 or 12, I can't remember. I think it was 11, though. But the problem is I put Paradise Lost, The Child Murder at Robin Hood Hills at my like number 2 spot, and it really didn't belong there. It's a documentary. It's not a horror film. It's not even a documentary on horror films, but I threw it on there because it was more of like a long-winded joke about how 96 was a bad year, but in reality it shouldn't have been on the list, and this should have probably been in my 10th spot. But yeah, Trilogy of Terror 2 got released on Blu-ray from Kino here. I was very excited about that because now that I've watched them back to back, I can say that I like Trilogy of Terror 2 a little bit more than the first one. And it's because I think the segments altogether are stronger, even though the final segment is not as strong as the final segment in the first film. So, let's get into that. Trilogy of Terror 2, which I believe was this also directed by Dan Curtis? I believe that it may have been, but I can't. It doesn't say anywhere on the back here. Yeah, directed by Dan Curtis. So cool. But so Trilogy of Terror 2, three stories as it was in the first film. Obviously, Trilogy of Terror would be weird if they did 4 stories, right? There's no framing segments in both the Trilogy of Terror films. I didn't mention that. I guess like the framing segment in the first one, or like the connectivity would be that they all starred the same actress, but this one is not the case. But this film opens up with the first segment called The Graveyard Rats, which honestly is probably my favorite segment in this one. It's the one I remember most when my friend was telling me about it. And it was the one that I was like most interested in. But anyway, it follows a woman who is the wife of a very rich man, and she has this sort of lover that she's having an affair with, and they get the idea that they're going to kill her husband by pushing him down the steps, and then collecting the insurance money and the estate and all that. And they do this, but the will was left in his casket with him, or in his suit pocket or something. So they have to basically go dig him up and take the will out of there. And they hear about this graveyard being infested with like huge rats. So when they finally get in there and dig him up, there is giant rats, and they got tunnels all under the cemetery and stuff like that. And these people are so money hungry that they will not let, you know, the will go, because I think a rat grabs it or something. But and you know, it's a really creepy segment. I love the way the rats look. Some of them they could have looked better at times, but they look cool at times too. But yeah, it's a really good segment. The second segment is called Bobby, which follows a woman who basically is trying to bring her drowned son back to life using witchcraft and you know, like devil worship stuff. And when she brings the kid back, it's a traditional, sometimes dead is better type thing. You know what I mean? Pet Cemetery. I love Pet Cemetery. And the kid is a little bastard, and he's evil, and she has to deal with that. It's a pretty good segment. It's my least favorite, though. And the final segment is called He Who Kills, which is a sequel segment to the first segment, or the last segment in the first film, which is the Zuni Fetish Doll segment. And it literally picks up after the first film in the apartment. And the Zuni Fetish doll is all burnt up, and they take it to this lab. The police take it to this lab, and this woman is running tests on it, and she's like scraping off all the charred stuff, and he's like perfectly fine underneath. And then it basically comes to life and attacks and kills the people in the place, and as after the woman. It's basically the same segment as the third segment in the first film, which is probably the thing that I like about it least, because there's literally like scenes that are directly lifted in like the pacing of it, like everything, the framework of the segment is very similar to that first one. So it's kind of like you're just watching a remake of it almost instead of a sequel. The coolest part is the beginning where they show the apartment, and they did a good job of making it like kind of seamless for like a 30-year gap or 20-year gap. So you know, that's almost a 20-year gap. That's kind of cool that Dan Curtis was able to do that. I really like that about it. But yeah, that's Trilogy of Terror. I think that Trilogy of Terror 2, I think that it is better than the first one. I know that's kind of crazy, but I really think that the one segment in Trilogy of Terror 1 is better than all three of these, but I think all three of these are better than both of the other two in the other segment. And all these ones are good in the other anthology, that is. Anyway, I'm starting to get tongue-tied. That is Trilogy of Terror 2. I go ahead and give it a 8 out of 10. And with that said, we'll see you guys next time with another one. Peace out.